I wasn't expecting my first public speaking to be at a women's conference after all I've been through. When Noreen asked me, I said, Nor, in case you haven't noticed, and she was like, well, let me tell you what the theme of the conference is. And when she told me it was about, what do you want to be when you grow up, I understood why she asked me. Because ever since I was little, I knew exactly what I wanted to be. A personnel manager. It's true. Came from watching too many Mary Tyler Moore episodes, and my parents always had it on. And so I watched it with him, and I noticed Lou Grant, he was a boss, and his answer to everything was send him down to personnel. So I was like, I want to work in personnel. That's where all the action is. I'm going there. Then I found out that I'd have to fire people, and I decided that probably wasn't for me. So instead, I got into advertising, and I started my career. I was 24. I started as a junior copywriter at Arnold. My father, Ed Eskandarian, he was the CEO and owner of Arnold at the time. And let me tell you, it's not easy being the boss's daughter, especially when you've always known deep down that you were his son. I first verbalized that when I was 4. And I actually came out to my grandmother. I just didn't know that's what I was doing. Neither did she. My family was at her summer cottage on the Cape. And my older sister, Wendy, and I were sitting on the faded oriental rug in the family room with our coloring books and crayons while my grandmother was, carting platters of food from the kitchen to the dining room, passing us every time. And on her last pass, she said, "Come on, girls, dinner's ready." And Wendy immediately sprung up and followed her into the into the dining room. And I just didn't flinch. I honestly did not think she was talking to me. And then a minute or two later, she came back. She came back over to me, and she looked me in the eye, and she said, "Didn't you hear me calling you?" And I said, "No." And I said, "Come on, girls." And I said, "I'm not a girl." And she said, "Yes, you are." And I said, "No, I'm not. I'm a boy." And she said, "No, you're not, sweetheart." And I said, "Well, I'm gonna be." And she said, "You can't, darling." And she, sympathetically looked at me and walked back into the kitchen. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, "Whatever, Graham, whatever. I'm going to make this happen with or without you." And according to my 4-year-old brain, the only difference between boys and girls was that boys had short hair and girls had long hair. So I told my mom, I want my hair cut like Daddy's. Problem solved. Or so I thought. It wasn't until the following summer when I realized I was lacking certain equipment. And again, I was at my grandmother's summer cottage. My sister Wendy and my younger cousin Adam and I had just come back from the beach. And we were having popsicles out on the back deck. And my cousin Adam says to me, "Watch this." And he turns to the side and pees in a perfect arc right over the deck rail. And I'm like, when I pee, it goes straight down. And I'm like, "Oh my God, how did you do that? Do you have a squirt gun in there?" And of course, Wendy, older and wiser, is like, "Duh, he has a penis." And I'm thinking, what is this penis? And how come I don't have one? And, I already felt stupid, so I wasn't about to ask. But I just figured I'd probably grow one, and it hadn't grown yet. Well, that didn't happen, and I began to realize something was terribly wrong. And every night, I would go to bed, and I would pray that somehow, some way, my body would turn into a boy's body. And everybody would realize they were all wrong, thinking that I was a girl. Well, my body changed all right, just not the way I'd hoped it would change. And puberty struck, and my body betrayed me in the worst possible way I could imagine. And I knew then that I was stuck. I was stuck with this body I hated, and I was stuck being a girl. And there was nothing I could do about it. I became very depressed, and my whole personality changed. I was not the fun-loving kid I used to be. I became angry. I was snapping at everybody. And my father was actually the first person to notice it, or at least call it to my attention. And he called me aside, and he's like, "Chris, you know, you used to be so easygoing. You were the calm one in the family." I had to calm him down all the time. And he said, "What's wrong? You know, what's happening?" And I couldn't explain it. And even if I could, I was scared to say anything. So what would be the point anyway? Even if I could, there was nothing I could do about it. So I just, I answered him in the same way any 12-year-old would answer their parents' question. "I don't know. I don't know." And then through junior high and high school, I knew I was attracted to girls. So I'd heard the word gay, and I knew what it meant, or at least I thought I knew what it meant, and I figured, oh God, I must be gay. And that's a common mistake a lot of people make at first. It's very hard for people to grasp that sexual preference and gender identity are two completely separate and different things. One way to understand it is sexual preference is who you go to bed with, and gender identity is who you go to bed as. But I didn't know any of that back at the time. All I knew was, oh my God, I think I'm gay. And that was traumatizing enough for me, just even that. You have to remember, this was the early 80s. Nobody was openly gay. Certainly nobody in white upper-class suburbia, which is where I lived. There weren't even any celebrities to point to. George Michael was still in the closet, and those were the Wham years. So, for anyone who knows, he's up on stage in white capri pants singing, "Wake Me Up Before You Go-Go." But he's not gay. The problem was, I looked up the definition of gay just to make sure, because that's how I am. I'm very thorough. So I looked it up, and all it said was someone who's attracted to the same sex. It didn't say anything about feeling like you were in the wrong body or wanting to become the opposite sex. So I just figured I was a freak, and there was no way in hell I was ever going to tell anybody what I was really feeling. Certainly not my family. I just couldn't humiliate them, and I couldn't bear the thought of them being ashamed. So I made a decision spring of my senior year in high school, and I decided that I'm going to go to college. It's supposed to be fun. I'm going to party it up for 4 years, and then I'm going to kill myself after graduation. Now, the first part of the plan was easy. I'd already gotten into Colgate, and I'd heard that they were ranked the #1 party school in the US that year. But graduation came and went, and I couldn't bring myself to follow through with the rest of the plan. So where did that leave me? Well, when you get to a point in your life where you don't want to live it anymore, you have two choices. You can either end it or you can change it. And I couldn't bring myself to end it, so I knew I had to change it.